What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler, that's Christopher Hall. It's time for the Big 12 Conference Tournament in Kansas City, so it's our time to break down our picks to see who's going to cut down the nets out there in the Midwest. And West Virginia, they'll be playing tomorrow on Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. They'll get the winner of Colorado and TCU. So let's just go ahead and do this. We're going to go and pick our first round winners, and then we'll kind of get a little bit more in depth as we get further on into the bracket here. So let's go ahead and start with Cincinnati and Oklahoma State, and then TCU versus Colorado. Chris, who you got in those two games?
I'm going to take Cincinnati. Kind of an odd team this year. Got a lot of talent. Just been inconsistent with that talent. So I'm going to take Cincinnati. And then on is that game two? I don't know why it's labeled game one, but game two uh, is TCU. I'll always pick defense. They've again another team that has talent, been a little bit inconsistent, but as we know, Jamie Dixon can lean on his defense uh, to get it done. So, and obviously Colorado's had a really really bad year.
Horrific.
We just are we going all the way through here, all
Yeah,
four
yeah,
games.
yeah. You can go and give your other two.
Um, Arizona State, Kansas State. I think this one's a little tougher. Again, Kansas State, another team with a lot of talent, spent a lot of money on NIL, didn't have the season that they wanted. But I'm gonna go with Hurley and the Sun Devils.
Ooh.
We've seen them at times, in Morgantown, as we well know. And then they followed it off. They ripped off like a 2 or 3 game stretch where they played really well after the game in Morgantown. So, kind of see them flip the switch a little bit, maybe grab a win over Kansas State. And I'm going to take another surprise, maybe UCF. Keyshawn Hall, in postseason, it's nice to have a good score. He led the Big 12 in scoring during conference play. West Virginia obviously held him in check in Morgantown over the weekend. I expect him to have a big opening game in that round one, and watch out in the next round
Yeah.
against Kansas.
I'm right there with you with Cincinnati and TCU. Cincinnati, oddly enough, they're the 13th seed in this tournament, but they're probably, I don't want to say have the best chance because I don't really think any of these teams in the first round really have a chance, but they probably have the best chance of these first round teams to still get to the tournament, but they're going to have to get to the final. There's no way that they're going to not, they're going to punch their ticket unless they at least get to the championship game and maybe even win the championship. But Cincinnati, I feel like they've got a lot more to play for than Oklahoma State, so I want to lean there in that situation. TCU, like you said, defense, Colorado has been really horrible all year. I don't see them catching fire late. I'm going to go with Kansas State over Arizona State. I can see the pick there. I really like Jaden Quaintance at Arizona State, Javon Sanan. They've got some really good players. But Kansas State, Jerome Tang, they've shown that they can be one of the better teams in the Big 12 despite their record. So I'm going to go with K State, and I'm going to go with UCF pulling the upset there as well. I just feel like Utah's kind of in a bummed out situation. Their head coach got fired. They really haven't. They played okay, I guess, down the stretch, but probably not to their expectations. So I'm going to go with UCF. So let's go ahead and move to Wednesday. We both have Cincinnati and Iowa State and TCU versus West Virginia. So let's go ahead and pick Cincinnati, Iowa State, and we'll get into the WVU game.
Yeah, man, this Cincinnati team for some reason I'm liking them, but I'm gonna stick with Iowa State. We know their history in Kansas City, dubbed as the Hilton South. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the Cyclones. Um, West Virginia, it's that TCU matchup. Obviously dangerous with Dixon. Uh, there in that defense, especially the way West Virginia struggled offensively. Again, we just saw it over the weekend, only 7 field goals in the second half against UCF. But I'm going to pick the Mountaineers. Um, I know I talked about it after the game that you can start seeing pieces offensively, pieces coming together. Hansberry and Yesufu playing, having more consistency down the stretch on the offensive end. Hansberry really working the boards, almost averaging a double double in his last nine. So I'm going to take the Mountaineers there.
I've been back and forth on it because I feel like I could see TCU winning this game, but West Virginia has the better team. They're more talented, I think, in terms of or not more talented, but I think they're more consistently defensively. So I'm going to rely on the defense to come out and get the win. This is probably going to be one of the lower scoring games on the Wednesday slate. So I'll go West Virginia. And as far as Cincinnati, Iowa State, yeah, I mean, word's going to come here for Wes Miller and those guys. Iowa State's a tough team to beat out there in Kansas City. So I'll have Iowa State moving on to the next round as well.
I really
So
think at Cincinnati, Iowa State will be a really good game. I can see that
it
coming
could
down
be.
to the final shot 100%.
Yeah.
Because that Cincinnati team, that's a good team.
They have to
They,
win.
they've got talent. They've got
Yeah.
talent. It's just, for whatever reason, they just have not been able to put it game by game.
I mean, they were what, top 20 at the early part of the season? I mean,
Non-conference, yeah. Non-conference,
so
they were ripping through it. But
Arizona
Big 12, it's
State,
a nightmare.
it is, as teams are quickly finding out. Arizona State versus Baylor for you, Kansas State versus Baylor for me.
Let's see. I already lost my bracket. Shocking. Baylor, Arizona State. Yeah, again, probably a little too high on the Sun Devils right now. Again, I think this is going to be another probably a little closer game down the stretch, but I think Baylor pulls that one out in the final five. And this UCF Kansas matchup, Kansas has had a letdown season, without a doubt. And I think we saw it last year with Kansas had early exits in both tournaments, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, and again, the postseason, man, a kid like Keyshawn Hall that can score from inside out, he's better known for attacking the rim. But in postseason, and if he can keep attacking the rim, get some of those guys in foul trouble, get them on their heels a little bit, especially after a program like Kansas, we all know is a blue blood. They're usually top four with, this is almost unprecedented, but they're at number six. The Knights could be sneaky in this tournament. I'm going to stick with Kansas because it's kind of hard not to pick Kansas. Again, another school. I think what they're like 45 minutes away
Yeah.
from the venue. They're going to have a lot of fans there. But wouldn't be surprised if somehow UCF pulled this off. But I'm going to take the Jayhawks.
I'm going to keep riding with Kansas State. I'm going to take them over Baylor. They've shown at stretches this year where they can beat very good teams in short stretches, and I think this is the one team that I would be most scared of, or the one team I wouldn't want to see if I was AKA Texas Tech, who they're going to see next in the next round, or Baylor. But yeah, I'm going to go with Kansas State there, and then UCF Kansas. I don't think it'll be as close of a game. I can see your points there with UCF and their ability to score, but Kansas playing them, I know it's not in Kansas, but Kansas City, I mean, come on. No, not going to happen. So I'm going with the Rock Chalk Jayhawks there. So moving into what would be the quarterfinals, we've got, let's see, Iowa State versus BYU and West Virginia, Houston. Um, Let's go with the West Virginia game first. What has to happen here? Because West Virginia's come kind of close, kind of not twice against Houston. They had it within 5 or 6 points pretty deep into the second half. Even at Houston, they did. But things kind of fell apart late. The offense dried up. You all know the story. What has to change for that outcome to change in this third go around?
Yeah, I think he used the same game plan, right? I think it was down in Houston. They were leading after the first 15 minutes. Houston
Yeah.
made a run, and they stayed right within that same margin throughout most of the second half, and it couldn't find any offense late, and that's really where it has to be. The final 5 minutes for West Virginia, um, primarily in the second half, but you can really go into the first half as well. They've struggled. They've really struggled. Whether they've tried to slow it down and play more of a half court offense. There's been several reasons. Other team playing with its more sense of an urgency um, and being better offensively, and West Virginia not being able, and then in West Virginia not being able to separate even. So I, West Virginia has every chance. It's hard to beat a team three times in one season. Of course, Houston is really, really good defensively. They're a great 3-point shooting team, so they have it working on both ends of the floor. But I don't have West Virginia winning, obviously, because how good Houston is. But this is a game right here where if West Virginia won, I would not be surprised. But you are kind of who you are, and yes, teams can kind of flip the script on in the postseason. And West Virginia is definitely one of those teams that are capable of doing it. I know it's easy to kind of say, well, that the battle for Atlantis, look what they did down there. They also had Tucker
Yeah,
um, during that
just
stretch as
a
well.
slight
So
difference.
but yeah, I still like the way Hansberry's playing. I still like the way Yesufu's playing. And you can throw in Powell, bouncing
Mhm.
back after a little bit of 3 game lull to get hit double figure. I think he averaged 12 and a half in his final 2 games. So you get Powell hitting maybe 3 of 7 from distance. Yesufu doing his thing. Hansberry popping, freeing up Javon Small there a little bit. Could be dangerous for Houston. I'm going to take Houston. I think it's going to wind up pretty much being the same thing. They'll just take over the final 5, 8 minutes or so and move on. Oh, I guess I need to pick BYU. BYU, Iowa State. Definitely like the Cougars the way they've played in Big 12 play. With Iowa State moving on again, Hilton South. I don't know if they're going to be really ready for that crowd. Little bit of different time for the Cyclone fans being at 11:30 local time out there. So, but I'm still going to take the Cyclones. They'll still show out. Um, but again, here's another game to me that BYU could definitely advance. I don't think that's a surprise to the 4 seed, but I would stay kind of sluggish there. I felt the back half of the Big 12. So
Absolutely.
they better be careful. But Iowa State's just been so good in this tournament. Kind of hard to go against them.
I could see where West Virginia makes Houston sweat it out to the very, very end. But I could also see a scenario where they come out and just can't make a dang shot because Houston's defense is so smothering, so tenacious, so annoying, agitating, all the adjectives you can throw it out there. And they just get their doors blown off. So I don't see a way that they win the game. But at this point, like we talked about on Saturday, it doesn't even matter. You're in the tournament right now. It's all about improving your seed. How much really can you improve your seed in the tournament? Well, I mean, if you beat Houston, that's probably going to help. Yeah, that's a quad one win. You beat BYU or Houston or BYU or Iowa State, assuming they make it to the next round. Another quad one. You maybe move up a seed or two. You're not going to have this massive jump where all of a sudden most projections right now have them as I believe a 9 or a 10. You're not going to become a 5 or a 6 if by winning the Big 12 tournament. So I don't know, but I just think their defense is going to be too much for this stagnant offense that just goes through so many scoring droughts. So I'm going to go Houston, and I'm going to go with BYU. I know Iowa State obviously kind of has the home court advantage there, but I love what I see out of Igor Demon. I love Traore. I love some of those other guys that BYU has that could really fill it up from three. I
No,
think it's a
Richie
very
Saunders.
yeah, Richie
No, Richie
Saunders.
Saunders mentioned.
Yeah, he's probably the best one of them, shooting wise. But yeah, I just think they have too much offensively for Iowa State, and they're going to have a chance to maybe win this whole thing. So I don't want to reveal my pick. I'm not going to, but I'm gonna take BYU there over Iowa State. Let's move down to the bottom half of the bracket. So we've got Texas Tech, and you have Baylor. I have Texas Tech, Kansas State. I'll go with my pick. I'm rolling with it, man. I'm all for craziness and the chaos. There's always going to be one team that goes way farther than they should. There's going to be one team that just shows up and lays a dud. And that's kind of what we got here. I've got Kansas State keeping on rolling. I got Texas Tech laying a dud. They're trying to play for maybe a 2 seed at best, maybe Texas Tech, but I just don't. I don't know. I think they see Kansas State. They think they can move on. And Kansas State just hits enough shots. So I'm going to get with the Wildcats to keep on with their magic.
I'm going to take the Bears. Edgecombe, freshman of the year. Texas
Yeah.
Tech has shown that UCF beat them out in Lubbock. Texas Tech is good, but I think it's one of those years for them that they obviously played above expectations, but I think things are going to kind of come crashing down with them in the postseason. And Scott Drew, obviously great coach, has done an excellent job in Waco. Very familiar with this tournament, how it operates. So I'm gonna take the Bears, in which the Baylor hasn't been great this year. They've probably been
One of the bigger
Um,
disappointments, probably.
right. So I kind of think they kind of hit the reset button and Baylor makes a run, just like everything said, right? There's going to be a team. Of course, I for some reason, I really like UCF in this tournament for really no reason because they've been horribly deep on the defensive end. Um,
Well, it's because they can score, probably.
yeah, again, if you have a great scorer in the postseason, I'm not saying any of these guys are Kemba Walker-esque, but you can see what one scorer can do for a team. But I'm going to take Baylor. I think VJ Edgecombe. He's going to have obviously I don't want to say breakout, but I think that's again one of those guys where he can just flip the switch and really
Yeah.
help carry a team in the postseason. I'm going to take the Bears.
He's a lottery pick. He's a fun watch. If you haven't checked him out, you pay attention this week. He might be one of those guys that really improves his draft stock. Arizona and Kansas for both of us here. I don't have Kansas as a one and done, but I do have them as a one and then done. I think the road ends here for Kansas. Arizona, really talented. Caleb Love making big shots after big shots. Really, they have several guys that can do that, and I don't know that Kansas really has the firepower this year. It seems like offensively they just kind of been throwing darts at a board blindfolded. You have no idea what you're going to get with them offensively. Um, they have to run things through Hunter Dickinson. I don't know. Arizona has some answers for that, so I'm going to go with the Wildcats.
Yeah, I think this one to me Arizona played better, I think, than I imagined going into the season. But if you look how they played down the stretch, how Kansas has played down this stretch, they're kind of similar, right? I think they have about the same record in the final five, final six games. Um, Two historic blue bloods. It's you know Arizona's first time in this tournament. Going to be far different than what they're used to seeing in the Pac-12. Again, Kansas fans will show out. It's a night game.
There's not going to
Um,
be 20 stands in the fans like there was in the Pac-12.
right. So um, it's going to be pretty much like it's not going to be playing like at the fall, but it's going to be a heavy favorite Kansas crowd. And really, to me, like Kansas obviously underperformed this season. Hunter Dickinson, he has the stats, but he hasn't carried this program. And if you think about the investment in NIL, was it worth it
No,
to have him on this roster?
they're empty
And
calorie stats, is what it is.
is this team? Where's this team at mentally right now? Because again, this is a team that's supposed to win the Big 12, right, in the regular season. If not winning the Big 12, they should be number two. So where are they? Have they checked out? Because what I think they were 3-3 in their last six, I believe. Same with Arizona. So Arizona started off hot again. As the season goes along, it is a grind. This is a toss up for me. I'm going to take Kansas just because I think it's a more of a home court advantage. And Arizona obviously they went through this whole Big 12 slate, but it's just a different animal out there in Kansas City. I don't think they're prepared for it. Obviously the travel heading east instead of west. Um, just little things like that I think make a difference. And I'm going to take the Jayhawks reluctantly because I don't even know if they're going to get past UCF if it is in fact UCF they play. So I think maybe after that first win, maybe they'll start to see a light at the end of the tunnel and get prepared for Big 12 play. Bill Self is still a great coach. I think he'll have these guys ready.
All right, so let's go to the top half of the bracket here. Semifinals. You have Iowa State, BYU, or excuse me, Iowa State, Houston, and I have Houston, BYU. I'll go and get mine out of the way first. I kind of teased it, but I'm going to go with BYU. I know it's crazy. I know it's out on a limb. My gut is telling me BYU. My brain is telling me, hey, it's Houston. Houston probably wins this the whole thing, but. I like BYU. I love Kevin Young, the way that he can get things created offensively. He is really, you see a lot of his NBA stuff or that NBA background play out in some of the things that he calls on offense. It's amazing to see how smooth that offense operates at times. I think BYU can do it. I know Houston went 19-1 in league play. Maybe they just start peeking ahead to the NCAA tournament. I don't know, but I'm going to go with the Cougars for whatever reason.
Yeah, this is a
The BYU Cougars.
for me. This is a uh, last year it was Iowa State and Houston in the championship game. Iowa State came out on top. I think Houston gets a revenge. This game. This is probably a game that they're circling right when they saw the matchup. So I'm going to take the Cougars. Wow, chalk pick. I know going out on a limb here, but I think Houston's. I mean, they've been really really good this year, and obviously look at the talent around them. Look at the guys that they brought back. LJ Cryer um, probably doesn't get. We remember him from Baylor, but he probably with everyone else around probably doesn't get the headlines as the rest of his teammate does. But he's really been that kind of that guy, that glue guy, and he's a guy that scores. So.
Yeah.
Um, I like this Houston team a lot this season. As far as the Big 12 goes, I think they get their revenge. Again, wouldn't be surprised if Iowa State ends up winning it because they've been really good in this tournament. But I think Houston gets their revenge from last season from the championship game and move on back to the finals.
I've got K-State in Arizona, and you have Baylor in Arizona. Man, that's pretty interesting. My semifinals were Cougars versus Cougars and Wildcats versus Wildcats. But I'm going to go with Arizona here. I think that the fun little road ends here for Kansas State. I just don't think that they have the consistency, especially playing. What would this be? Their fourth straight day playing. Yeah, it's just not going to happen against Arizona. I mean, there's not much for me to dive into. I think they just catch a little bit of lightning in a bottle there to start the thing out, but that's going to come to an end here against Arizona. So I'm going to go with Arizona and BYU as my Big 12 championship, and you have Houston and
I haven't
Arizona.
picked yet.
Oh yeah, you haven't picked yet. Yeah,
I
Arizona versus
picked
Baylor
Kansas. I picked Kansas over Arizona.
or Kansas. Yeah, okay, that's right. So you have
So
Kansas versus Baylor.
yes, and I am going to take the Bears. Um, I'm taking Baylor
Bold.
to ride to the Big 12 championship, 100%. Everything I said before, Edgecombe, I think he's just going to have a great tournament. Of course, I'm just kind of pulling this out of thin air pretty much. Um, but he's just one of those kids that can just go off. That's kind of what I was looking for when I was kind of looking through it. Like, who can do it? Like, yes, I like Keyshawn Hall at UCF, but he doesn't have the guys around him. Baylor does. And they have enough pieces there to do something like this. Like, yes, Texas Tech is the 2 seed. Toppin, for whatever reason, was Big 12 Player of the Year. Um, Tech's good, but again, they've shown vulnerability throughout the season, and I think what again, Scott Drew's been here. This is a team that's been here, and I kind of just like this Bears team for whatever reason. They've been kind of a staple in the Big 12 for how long now? So kind of looking back on that and everything Scott Drew's done, I'm just going to go with the Bears to meet the Bears and the Cougars in the Big 12 championship.
Who you got winning
Houston, Sean.
it?
Discussion.
I'll be the one
Houston.
to go out on a limb. So
I think Baylor obviously can have a run. It's like one of those, when you see a team play really well, and we've seen West Virginia. How many times have we seen West Virginia kind of early in the Big 12 days or early-ish in the bigger 12 days from where we're at now? Went to the Big 12 championship, had a nice run, but when it entered in that game, at then it would have been Kansas. Um, the wheels didn't fall off, but you could kind of see the talent rise to the top there and kind of shut all the nonsense down. I think that's exactly what Houston's going to do. They obviously have the defense to stop someone like Edgecombe. So I'm gonna ride with the Cougars all the way through.
I've got BYU in Arizona, and it's kind of a weird Big 12 championship because I don't think probably very many people have either one making it there. But um, I'm going to go with the craziness again. I actually didn't even think I was going to go with BYU all the way, but why not? I think they have the talent to do it. Again, Igor Demon is an absolute beast, and yes, he's not going to light up the stat sheet like maybe VJ Edgecombe or Mark or LJ Cry or somebody else does in this tournament, but he can make plays, and he makes plays for his teammates. He can create baskets. They're just a very tough team to deal with, a handful, really. So I'm going to go BYU cutting down the nets in Kansas City. I know I'm probably going to come back to this and be like, why the hell did I do that and just not pick Houston? But
pretty
I'll
much.
live out on the edge here. So, lastly, before we get out of here, what do you feel like is the ceiling for the Mountaineers here in this tournament? We both obviously have them winning and then losing to Houston, but how deep can they go? What can they go all the way and cut down the nets, or can they go at least another round? What do you feel like is the ceiling for them?
I'm never gonna, I think honestly, West Virginia could make it to the Big 12 championship, simply because they do have pieces. And DeVries, if you look at his history, granted they were good in the regular season too when he was at Drake, but they they did really well in conference tournaments. How's that translate in the Big 12? Obviously, this is a completely different animal. But I think if they were to get by Houston, I think the semifinals is about as far as they can go because the effort that's going to have to take. First off, if they're playing
They're going to be
TCU,
gassed.
yeah, if they're playing TCU, they're going to have to fight for every bucket, and then obviously with Houston, it's going to be multiplied by like 10. So yeah, will they have the legs? I think you can get help a little bit if they are playing Iowa State. To me that spells more trouble for
Yep.
West Virginia because they're going to look at West Virginia and say, well, we want that game back. So yeah, if they play BYU, obviously that was a matchup nightmare for West Virginia. So I think their best bet is like, all right, hopefully Cincinnati can do some damage, or Oklahoma State comes out of nowhere and does some damage. So I'm going to say the semifinals. Would I be shocked? Uh, I think everybody would be shocked if they won it all.
Yeah.
And definitely there's got to be some shock factor if they made it to the semifinals to get by Houston. So yes, I think they have pieces to do it. Again, we just talked about how close, within striking distance where they were Houston, it just came to 5 minutes, but that's kind of been who they are at this point. And with a team like Houston, when that sense of urgency is on the line, they have the talent to pull away from teams. So I think the semifinals, if they can muster up a win over Houston, I think that's just that's going to be the end of it,
Yeah.
unless barring some crazy upsets where Oklahoma State or Cincinnati make it down there.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there. If they had got the 7 seed and had to play Texas Tech, eh, I could maybe see that being extended because then you're playing in the other half of the bracket and you would have Arizona down there as well. Not that Arizona's necessarily a beatable team again for West Virginia, at least with this iteration of the roster, but I think it'd be a little bit easier to go a little bit deeper. But yeah, you're going to be so exhausted. I don't see how you would get past Houston. If he does and they get to the Big 12 championship, well, shit, like Darren DeVries should be the coach of the year at that point. So I don't
I mean, he
know.
had a good argument to be the regular
Yeah.
season coach of the year, but yeah. I mean, we can go on a whole rant about Big 12 Player of the Year, but coaches decide that they threw double teams at Javon Small all season long.
Yeah.
Still ends up leading the league in scoring, and they vote top and in. Which I mean, he's a great player. There's no denying that he's
He's
that
a
good, but
great player that is deserving of the award, but is he as valuable to his team as Javon Small is to West Virginia? My answer, and I think a lot of people's answer to that is hell no.
right,
Javon,
it's again they threw everything at the kitchen sink at him all year, and
he
he
still
still
answered.
put up the numbers he did. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Go
Crazy
prove him
West Virginia's
wrong.
had crazy West Virginia's had two players lead the league in scoring and not make Player of the Year.
Yeah. I don't know what's crazier, that or the Big 12 put 10 players out for the first team all Big 12 selection yesterday. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know. Brett Yormark's got to offer some sort of an explanation, but regardless, they'll have a chance to prove them wrong this week in regards to Javon and West Virginia. So we'll see what happens this week. Again, Wednesday is the first game for West Virginia. They'll get the winner of Colorado and TCU at 3 o'clock Eastern, and that will be on ESPN Plus with the right to move on to play the Houston Cougars. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Between the Ears. For Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler Callihan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube page at West Virginia on SI. Give us a follow on our X handle at SI_WView. And we'll be back here Wednesday evening to recap whatever team plays the Mountaineers.